Ethan Cole had always lived a quiet life, far away from noise and city crowds. People in the nearby town often said that Ethan was a man of few words, but many responsibilities. He worked from sunrise to sunset on the Cole Ranch, a place his family had cared for over 3 generations. Ethan never complained about the long days or the heavy work. Life on the ranch was not easy, but it was honest, and that was enough for him. Each morning he woke before the sun touched the mountains. He fed the horses, checked the cattle, fixed fences, and made sure every part of the land was safe. His favorite part of the day was when he rode his horse through the open fields. The wind felt cool against his face, and for a moment it seemed like all the worries of life disappeared. He didn't have many friends, but the animals and the mountains kept him company. On one particular evening, the sky looked different. The sun was dipping behind the tall mountains earlier than usual, painting the horizon in shades of orange and purple. Ethan had spent most of the day repairing a wooden gate that had swollen from last week's rain. By the time he finished, the air had turned cooler and quiet. He saddled his horse and began taking the narrow trail that led home. This path passed through a small forest area, a place Ethan knew well. He had ridden through it hundreds of times, even in the dark. As he guided his horse forward, he noticed something unusual. The forest was too quiet. Normally he would hear crickets, the rustle of leaves, or the soft movement of small animals. But tonight, everything was still. Ethan slowed his horse and listened carefully. After a few seconds, he heard a faint sound, something soft and trembling. At first, he thought it might be an injured animal, but the sound continued, turning into what clearly seemed like quiet sobs. Ethan pulled the reins gently and stopped. He climbed down from his horse, letting it stand calmly beside him. The sound came from the left side of the trail, beyond a small cluster of bushes. Ethan hesitated for a moment. It wasn't common for anyone to be out here at this hour, and he knew the forest trails could confuse even experienced hikers. After listening again and confirming the sound was indeed human, he stepped toward it slowly. He pushed aside a few branches and finally saw her. A young woman sat on the ground, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her clothes were dusty, and her hair was tangled from walking through the woods. She looked exhausted, scared, and unsure of where she was. Her breathing was shaky, and tears had left traces on her cheeks. When she lifted her head, her eyes widened at the sight of Ethan. She backed up slightly, startled, as though she wasn't sure if she was safe. Ethan raised his hands slowly, palms open, showing he meant no harm. "It's all right," he said in a calm voice. "I'm not here to scare you." The girl blinked, trying to focus. For a moment, she seemed unsure how to respond. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, she said, "Please, don't run from me." Her request surprised him. She looked frightened, yet she was afraid he would leave her alone. Ethan stepped a little closer, but carefully, not wanting to cause her any more fear. He kneeled a few feet away to appear less intimidating. "I'm not going anywhere. Are you hurt?" he asked gently. She shook her head. I'm just lost," she said, her voice breaking. "I got separated from my group. I thought I'd find the trail again, but I kept going the wrong way." It didn't take Ethan long to understand the situation. The forest trails around the mountain could be confusing, especially for someone who wasn't familiar with the area. If she had wandered off the main path, finding her way back alone would have been almost impossible in the dark. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Maya," she replied softly. "Well, Maya," Ethan said, keeping his voice steady and reassuring, "you're safe now. I live nearby. I'll help you get back." Maya looked down, struggling to stop her tears. "I didn't know what to do," she admitted. "I got scared when the sun started setting. Everything looks different in the dark." Ethan looked around. The forest shadows were already growing darker, and the trail ahead was barely visible. He knew they had limited time before the forest became too dark to move safely. He offered his hand. "Let's get you out of here." She hesitated only for a second before placing her trembling hand in his. Ethan helped her stand. Her legs wobbled slightly from exhaustion. He guided her to the trail where his horse waited patiently. Maya glanced at the horse with nervous eyes, but Ethan smiled lightly. "Don't worry, he's gentle." Before moving forward, Ethan took off his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. The evening air had become chilly, and she had clearly been sitting in the cold for some time. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with relief. Ethan nodded. "You're welcome." They began walking slowly down the trail, Ethan leading the horse with one hand and keeping a protective eye on Maya. She stayed close to him, still shaken from being lost for hours. Every little sound from the forest made her tense, but Ethan walked with steady confidence. He knew these woods well, and his calm presence seemed to help her feel a bit braver. After a few minutes of quiet walking, Maya finally spoke again. "I didn't think anyone would find me," she said, her voice still fragile. "I didn't even know if I was making things worse by walking further." "You did the right thing sitting still when you realized you were lost," Ethan replied. "It's safer that way." Maya looked up at him, studying his face. There was something comforting about him, his steady walk, his quiet strength, and the way he kept checking to make sure she was all right. They continued walking, but Ethan soon noticed the trail ahead was darker than usual. The clouds had covered the moonlight, and the forest shadows were growing deeper. They would not be able to go much farther without better light. Ethan stopped and looked around carefully. Maya watched him anxiously. "What is it?" she asked. "It's getting too dark to walk safely," he said. "The trail gets narrow ahead, and I don't want you getting hurt." Maya swallowed nervously. "So, what do we do?" Ethan thought for a moment. "We stay here for a while. The moon will rise higher soon. Once it does, we'll have enough light to continue." Maya nodded slowly, trusting his judgment. Ethan guided her to a clear spot beside the trail where the ground was smooth. He let her sit and gave her some water from the small canteen he always carried. She drank gratefully, her hands still trembling slightly. He sat near her, but not too close, to give her a sense of safety without overwhelming her. The forest was quiet again, but with Ethan beside her, Maya no longer felt alone. She wrapped his jacket tighter around herself and looked up at the darkening sky. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, but something about the silence felt peaceful instead of frightening. Maya broke the silence first. "Thank you for not leaving me." Ethan turned his head slightly toward her. "I wouldn't leave anyone out here alone," he said softly, "especially not someone who needs help." The tremble in her voice had softened, replaced by a quiet relief. The moonlight, though faint, slowly began to make its way through the trees, gently lighting the space around them. Maya felt her heartbeat starting to calm. She looked at Ethan again, realizing that this stranger, this cowboy she had met in the middle of the forest, had already become a source of comfort. And as they sat beneath the slowly rising moon, the night no longer felt like something to fear. The soft moonlight slowly began to spread across the forest, making the trees glow gently in the pale light. Ethan watched the sky carefully, waiting for the moon to climb high enough to brighten the trail. Maya sat beside him, still wrapped in his jacket, trying to relax her trembling hands. Though she was calming down, the fear of the long hours she had spent lost still lingered in her eyes. Ethan glanced at her from time to time, making sure she was all right without making her uncomfortable. He knew that when someone was frightened, silence could be either comforting or heavy. With Maya, the silence seemed to hold a mixture of both. She took slow breaths, as if reminding herself that she was finally safe. After a few minutes, Maya spoke softly. "I'm sorry if I'm causing trouble. You were probably on your way home." Ethan shook his head gently. "Don't worry about that. Getting you safe is more important." Maya looked down at the leaves beside her, her fingers brushing them lightly. "I didn't think I'd get this scared," she admitted. "I've hiked before, but never alone. I thought I could keep up with the group, but I got distracted, and before I knew it, I was completely off the trail." Ethan nodded, listening carefully. "It happens more often than you'd think," he said. "These mountains look peaceful, but the trails can confuse even experienced hikers." Maya sighed softly. "I thought the forest looked beautiful earlier," she said, "but once the sun started setting, it felt different." Ethan understood. The forest had two sides, one filled with calm beauty and one filled with quiet uncertainty. He had grown up here, so he wasn't afraid of the night, but he knew how unsettling it could be for someone new. The moon rose a little higher, brightening the leaves above their heads. Maya slowly stretched her legs, trying to ease the tiredness. Ethan offered her another sip of water, and she accepted it gratefully. "Were you looking for help?" Maya asked after a moment. "Or did you take this trail by chance?" "I was checking a part of the ranch," Ethan explained. "One of the cattle fences is close to this side of the forest. I didn't expect to find anyone here, especially this late." Maya exhaled slowly. "I'm glad you did." For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to people thanking him. His life was quiet, simple, and most days he didn't have conversations beyond greetings at the local store. But hearing Maya's sincere voice stirred something gentle in him. He nodded slightly and looked toward the moonlit path. "You're safe now," he reassured her again. Maya gave him a small, grateful smile. It wasn't a bright or cheerful smile, but it was filled with relief, something that made Ethan's chest feel warm, even in the cool forest air. The wind moved softly through the trees, making the leaves whisper gently. Maya listened to the sound. It no longer felt frightening. Instead, it felt soothing. She wrapped the jacket tighter as a cool breeze brushed her cheek. "Do you come here often?" she asked, trying to ease her own feelings with conversation. "Almost every day," Ethan replied. "There's always something to check. Fences, water lines, the horses grazing nearby. The ranch is big, and I like making sure everything is fine." Maya looked curious. "It sounds peaceful," she said. Ethan gave a quiet smile. "Most days it is." They fell into another comfortable silence. The moonlight grew brighter, reflecting on the forest floor. Maya looked up, admiring how beautiful everything seemed now. It was hard to believe that just an hour earlier, this same place had made her feel helpless. Ethan noticed her calmer expression. "Feeling better?" he asked softly. "A little," she replied. "I still feel shaky, but not like before." "That's good," Ethan said. "Fear goes away slowly. You've had a long day." Maya nodded. She had walked for hours, hoping to find her group or a familiar trail. Every rustle had scared her. Every shadow had looked like something unknown. She had felt completely alone until Ethan appeared, calm, confident, and reassuring. She glanced at him again. "Thank you for staying with me," she whispered. Ethan looked at her gently. "I told you I wouldn't leave." Maya took a quiet breath, comforted by the certainty in his voice. Ethan looked up at the sky again. "We'll need to wait just a bit longer," he said. "Once the moon gets higher, the path ahead will be clear." "That's fine," Maya said. "I don't mind waiting. It feels safer here." Ethan nodded, grateful that she trusted him. To keep her mind off her fear, Ethan decided to start a light conversation. "Where are you from?" he asked. Maya smiled softly. I moved into the nearby town a few months ago. I wanted a quieter life, something different from what I had before. Did you come here to find peace? Ethan asked. She nodded. I guess so. I wanted a fresh start. I thought exploring the mountains might help me feel free. And it did, until I got lost. Ethan couldn't help but smile slightly. The mountains do that. They give peace, and then test you at the same time. Maya laughed gently, her first little laugh since he found her. I guess I learned that lesson today. Ethan looked at her, noticing that the fear on her face had finally softened into something calmer. You're stronger than you think, he said. Not everyone holds on this long alone in the forest. Maya looked touched. I didn't feel strong. I felt small and scared. But you didn't give up, Ethan replied. That means more than you think. She took in his words slowly, letting them settle in her heart. As the moon grew brighter, a soft silver glow spread through the forest. The path ahead was beginning to show faint outlines. Ethan stood up, brushing dirt off his hands. Looks like we can move soon, he said. Maya stood too, though her legs still felt a little unsteady. Ethan noticed and placed a steady hand near her elbow, not touching her unless she needed support, but close enough to help. Take your time, he said gently. She nodded and took a deep breath. The jacket smelled faintly like leather and fresh hay, layers of Ethan's simple ranch life. Somehow, this scent made her feel grounded. Ethan led the horse closer to them and checked the trail again. We'll walk slowly, he said. The ground can be uneven. Okay, Maya replied, trusting him completely now. They began walking again, side by side. The moonlight guided their steps, making the trail shine softly. Maya stayed close, not out of fear alone, but because she felt safe in his presence. Ethan walked steadily, turning back occasionally to make sure she was all right. Even though the forest was still quiet, Maya no longer felt the earlier weight of silence. Now she heard the soft padding of Ethan's boots on the ground, the gentle steps of the horse, and her own breathing, calm and steady. After some time, Maya whispered, "You make everything feel less scary." Ethan looked at her, surprised by her honesty. "You're doing well," he said kindly. "You're not alone anymore." Maya's eyes reflected the soft glow of the moon, filled with gratitude. "I'm really glad you found me," she said. Ethan gave a small nod, his voice quiet. "Me too." They continued walking through the moonlit forest, each step leading them closer to safety, but also closer to an unexpected bond growing between them, something neither of them fully understood yet, but both could feel quietly forming under the mountain moon. As Ethan and Maya continued walking through the moonlit forest, the trail began to feel gentler under their feet. The earlier fear that had held Maya tightly was slowly fading, replaced by a quiet sense of safety. The soft glow from the moon followed them through the trees, lighting their way like a calm guide. Maya walked close beside Ethan, not because she was afraid of the forest anymore, but because his presence made everything feel steady. After a while, Ethan slowed his pace and said, "Let's rest here for a moment." He pointed to a wide stone covered with moss, smooth enough for sitting. Maya nodded, grateful for the break. Her legs were tired from walking for hours before he found her. She sat on the stone and exhaled deeply, feeling the cool night air brush gently across her face. Ethan stood nearby and tied the horse's reins loosely to a branch, making sure the animal could relax as well. Then he sat down a short distance from Maya, careful to give her space, but still close enough so she wouldn't feel alone. For a while, neither of them spoke. The forest whispered softly around them, leaves rustling, distant sounds of small animals moving through the grass, and the steady breathing of the horse. It felt peaceful, almost unreal after the fear and confusion Maya had faced earlier. Finally, Maya looked at Ethan and said, "I feel like I've been walking for days. I can't believe I managed to get so far off the trail." Ethan nodded. "These woods can be tricky. One wrong turn and everything starts looking the same." Maya wrapped her arms around herself, not from cold this time, but from the lingering stress of the day. "When it started getting dark, I thought no one would ever find me." Her voice trembled slightly at the memory. "I kept thinking I would wander forever." Ethan turned toward her, his voice gentle. "That didn't happen," he said. "You're safe now. You made it through." Maya met his eyes briefly. There was something warm and steady in his gaze, something that felt strong enough to hold both her fear and her hope at the same time. She felt herself relax a little more. To ease her thoughts, Ethan asked, "So you said you recently moved to town?" Maya nodded. "Yes. It's been different, quiet. I wanted a change, a slower life. The city I lived in before was always loud, people rushing everywhere. I felt like I couldn't breathe sometimes." "That sounds stressful," Ethan said. "It was," Maya agreed. "I needed a place where I could feel calm, a place where I could think. That's why I joined the hiking group today. I thought walking through nature would give me that peaceful feeling." Ethan studied her carefully. "And did it? Before you got lost?" "I mean," Maya smiled softly. "Yes, it felt amazing. Fresh air, quiet paths, and beautiful views. It felt like I had finally made the right choice moving here. But when the group got too far ahead of me and I lost sight of them, everything changed so quickly." "That happens," Ethan said. "Sometimes peace and fear can exist in the same place, especially out here." Maya nodded slowly, understanding exactly what he meant. She took a deep breath. "What about you? Have you always lived here?" "All my life," Ethan answered simply. "This ranch, these mountains, this town, it's all I've ever known." "Do you like it?" Maya asked. Ethan looked out at the trees, thinking for a moment. "I do," he said. "It's quiet, but meaningful. The work is long, but it feels good to build something with your hands. The land teaches you lessons every day." Maya felt curious. "Do you ever feel lonely?" Ethan hesitated. It wasn't a question he was used to answering. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I guess I learned to live with it. The animals keep me busy, and the mountains are good company." Maya smiled. "That sounds peaceful, but also a little sad." Ethan let out a small breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "Maybe both." Their conversation flowed naturally, as if they had known each other longer than just a few hours. Maya found comfort in talking to him, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Someone genuinely listening to him. The moonlight brightened over the clearing, casting soft, silver shadows around them. Maya looked up at the sky. "It's beautiful tonight," she whispered. "It is," Ethan agreed. "Moonlight makes the forest look gentler." Maya leaned slightly forward, her elbows resting on her knees. "You know, earlier when I was alone, I kept thinking about all the things I should have done differently. I should have stayed closer to the group. I should have checked the trail markers more carefully. I should have stayed calm instead of panicking." Ethan shook his head gently. "Don't blame yourself. Anyone could have gotten lost. Fear happens. Mistakes happen. What matters is that you didn't stop trying." Maya looked at him with quiet gratitude. "You make everything sound easier." "I'm just telling the truth," Ethan said. "People are harder on themselves than they need to be." She smiled faintly. "You must be good at comforting others." "Not really," Ethan said, a bit shyly. "I just say what I feel." Maya watched him for a moment. Noticing how humble he was, there was something strong yet gentle about him, a calmness that reached her even when she felt anxious. She took a slow breath. "You know," she said softly. "When you found me, I was so scared you'd just walk away. That's why I said those words, 'Don't run from me.' I didn't want to be left alone again." Ethan turned his head toward her. "I understood," he said quietly. "Your voice, it sounded like you'd been carrying fear for hours. I wasn't going to leave after hearing that." Maya felt her eyes warm slightly, though not from sadness. "Thank you," she whispered again, "for staying." "You don't need to thank me," Ethan replied. "It's what anyone should do." Maya shook her head lightly. "Not everyone would. Some people get scared when they see someone in trouble. They don't know how to help." Ethan took in her words thoughtfully. "I guess I'm used to helping. On the ranch, things go wrong all the time. Animals get hurt or wander off. Fences break. Storms come without warning. You learn to stay calm." "That makes sense," Maya said. "It explains why you felt so steady when you found me." "I'm glad I could help," Ethan said, meaning every word. The wind moved gently through the branches, and the moonlight settled comfortably over them. For the first time since getting lost, Maya felt completely safe. Not just because she wasn't alone, but because Ethan's presence filled the darkness with something warm. After a few more minutes of resting, Ethan stood and brushed off his hands. "We should keep going," he said softly. "The ranch isn't too far now." Maya stood too, feeling more confident than before. Her legs still felt tired, but her heart felt lighter. As they continued walking, their conversation deepened naturally. They talked about small things, favorite foods, childhood memories, funny moments, and quiet dreams. With each topic, they learned something new about each other. Maya learned that Ethan loved the early morning sky more than anything else, and Ethan learned that Maya enjoyed painting even though she wasn't very confident about it. Something warm and unspoken grew between them, something gentle, like the moonlight guiding their steps. Maya found herself walking closer, not out of fear, but because she felt connected to him. Ethan didn't move away. He didn't say anything about it, but his presence softened, as if he welcomed her closeness. By the time the ranch lights came into view far ahead, Maya realized something quietly surprising. She didn't want the walk to end too quickly, and Ethan, though he didn't say it, felt the same. The journey that had begun with fear was slowly becoming something meaningful, something that neither of them had expected under the mountain moon. The soft glow of the ranch lights ahead felt like a promise of safety for Maya. She had spent hours in the forest, scared and unsure if she would ever find her way out, but now, as she walked beside Ethan, each step felt steadier than the last. The moon stayed high above them, lighting the path with a gentle silver shine. The horse walked patiently behind them, its footsteps soft on the dirt. Maya looked at the ranch with curiosity. Even from a distance, she could see a wide wooden fence, a warm light from the porch, and shadows of barns that rested peacefully under the night sky. It looked calm, like a place where time moved slower. Ethan noticed her looking. "That's the ranch," he said quietly. "We'll stop there first. You can rest before I take you back to town." Maya nodded, though something in her heart felt uncertain. Not because she didn't want to go home, but because the idea of this walk ending made her unexpectedly sad. She had grown comfortable with Ethan's presence, with the steady rhythm of his steps and the quiet strength in his words. They walked closer to the ranch, and the smell of hay and fresh grass filled the air. The night breeze brought a faint scent of horses and warm wood. Maya found it comforting, like a world she had never known but somehow belonged to. As they reached the fence, Ethan opened the gate with a familiar motion. The sound of creaking wood echoed gently in the quiet night. He guided the horse inside and then looked at Maya. "Watch your step," he said. "The ground can be uneven here." Maya followed him carefully. Even though she was tired, she felt peaceful now, as if the ranch itself welcomed her with open arms. They walked toward the porch, where a lantern hung from a wooden beam, casting warm light over the steps. Ethan tied the horse near the barn, patting its neck softly to thank it for the long walk. Maya watched him, noticing how gentle he was even with the animals. When he returned to her, he asked, "Would you like some water? Maybe something warm to drink? You've had a long day." Maya nodded shyly. "If it's not too much trouble." "It's no trouble," Ethan said. "Come inside." He opened the door to the ranch house, and a soft yellow light spilled onto the porch. Maya followed him inside. The house was simple but warm: wooden floors, a brick fireplace, and shelves filled with old books and tools. A few pictures hung on the walls, showing the ranch across different seasons. Maya felt her shoulders relax. "Your home is beautiful," she said softly. Ethan gave a modest smile. "It's old, but it works." He motioned for her to sit on the couch near the fireplace. Maya sank into the cushion, feeling her tired muscles ease. Ethan stepped into the kitchen and filled a cup with warm tea. When he returned, he handed it to her with a small, reassuring smile. She held the cup carefully and whispered, "Thank you." He pulled a chair closer, but still kept a comfortable distance. "How are you feeling now?" "A lot better," Maya said honestly. "Being inside, it feels safe." "Good," Ethan said. "You're welcome to rest here for a bit. No rush." Maya nodded. She took a sip of the tea, feeling warmth spread through her. For the first time that day, she felt fully calm. The fireplace crackled gently, adding a soft glow around the room. After a few moments, she asked, "Do you live here alone?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "My parents moved closer to town a few years ago. I stayed to take care of the ranch." "Isn't it hard, handling all of this on your own?" Ethan paused, thinking. "It's a lot of work," he admitted, "but it's also my home. I grew up here. I know every fence, every trail, every sound the land makes. Some days are tough, but I wouldn't trade it." Maya admired the quiet pride in his voice. "I wish I had something like that," she said, "something that felt like it belonged to me." "You will," Ethan said softly. "Sometimes it takes time to find that place." Maya looked into her cup, thinking about her life, her fears, and the uncertain steps she had taken since moving. "Maybe," she whispered. They sat in silence for a moment, comfortable this time. The warmth of the tea and the gentle crackle of the fire filled the room with a calm atmosphere. Ethan stood and took a blanket from the nearby shelf. "Here," he said. "You can rest for a bit if you want." Maya accepted the blanket, touched by his kindness. "Thank you," she said again. He nodded and walked toward the window, checking the sky. "It's clear tonight," he said. "Good weather to travel." Maya hesitated before asking, "Do we have to leave right away?" Ethan turned to her, surprised by the gentle hope in her voice. "No," he said slowly. "Only when you're ready." Maya smiled softly. I like it here. It feels peaceful." Ethan's expression softened. "I'm glad." He returned to sit near her, though not too close, giving her comfort without pressure. Maya watched him with quiet curiosity. She could see in his eyes the kind of strength that didn't come from loudness or force, but from living a life with purpose and patience. "Ethan," she said gently, "why did you come looking that far into the forest tonight? You said you were checking fences, but you didn't have to take the long route." He thought for a moment. "I guess," he said quietly. "Something felt off. I kept feeling like I should ride further. Just in case." Maya stared at him with growing warmth. "So, you had a feeling?" He nodded. "Sometimes the land tells you things, and sometimes your heart knows things before your mind does." Maya felt a flutter in her chest. She didn't fully understand. She lowered her gaze shyly. Ethan noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he said, "I'm just glad it led me to you." Maya looked up slowly, meeting his eyes. "Me too." The room fell silent again, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was a silence filled with trust, gratitude, and an unspoken connection that had grown between them through the night. Ethan stood after a while. "I should check the barn," he said, "just to make sure the animals are settled." "Can I come with you?" Maya asked softly. He blinked, slightly surprised. "You're tired." "I know," she said with a small smile. "But I want to see the ranch. Just a little." Ethan hesitated only for a moment before nodding. "All right. Stay close. It's dark out there." They stepped outside again. The moonlight washed the ranch in a soft glow. From the barn, gentle sounds of horses shifting their weight, and the smell of hay filled the night air. Maya followed Ethan inside. He lit a lantern, and the warm light revealed the horses in their stalls. Maya walked slowly, admiring them. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "They're good workers," Ethan said with quiet pride. "Strong and loyal." As she pet one of the horses gently, Maya felt her fear replaced completely by peace. She looked back at Ethan, who was watching her with a calm expression. "You really love this life," she said softly. "I do," he replied. Maya's heart felt full. She realized how rare it was to meet someone so genuine, so honest, and so quietly caring. As they stepped out of the barn, she whispered, "Ethan, I'm really glad you didn't run from me." Ethan looked at her under the moonlight. "I never would," he said simply. And in that moment, something warm and deep settled between them. Something unspoken but real, under the quiet mountain moon. When the sun rose the next morning, the world looked calm and bright, but Ethan felt a strange mix of tiredness and quiet happiness. He had not slept much after bringing Maya back safely, but he kept thinking about everything that had happened. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her trembling hands, her frightened eyes, and the way she had relaxed when he told her she was safe. It wasn't just a memory. It felt like something had changed inside him. Ethan was cleaning the porch when he heard the soft sound of footsteps coming toward the ranch. At first, he thought it might be one of the ranch workers arriving early, but when he looked up, his heart paused for a moment. Maya was walking toward him. She was wearing simple clothes, and her hair was tied back loosely. She still looked a little tired, but she was smiling, softly, shyly, like she wasn't sure if she should be there. Ethan wiped his hands and stepped closer. "You okay?" he asked gently. "Yes," Maya said, breathing out slowly. I wanted to come and thank you. Properly." "You already thanked me last night," he said, trying not to sound awkward. "But that was different," she replied. "I was too tired and scared to think clearly. Now I want to thank you from my heart." She stood there quietly for a moment. As if choosing her words carefully, Ethan didn't rush her. He could tell she had things to say, and he didn't want to interrupt. Finally, Maya said, "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found me. I was so scared. But the moment you spoke to me, I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. You didn't judge me. You didn't get annoyed. You just helped me. Not everyone would do that." Ethan felt a warm, uncomfortable feeling in his chest, the kind he wasn't used to. "I just did what anyone should have done," he said quietly. "But everyone doesn't," Maya answered softly. There was silence for a moment. Not an awkward one, just calm and gentle, like the morning breeze. Maya looked around the ranch, taking in the wide-open fields, the horses grazing near the fence, and the soft golden light touching everything. "You live in such a peaceful place," she said. "It has its quiet days," Ethan replied. "And yesterday wasn't one of them?" she said, smiling again. That made him smile too. Maya then took a small step closer. Ethan noticed how different she looked from the girl he had found trembling in the forest. Her shoulders were more relaxed, her eyes brighter. She looked stronger now, and yet there was still a softness in the way she looked at him. "I don't want to forget what you did for me," Maya said, "and I don't want this to be the last time we talk." Ethan felt something shift inside him, something gentle but real. He had spent years keeping distance from people so he wouldn't get attached or hurt again. But standing there with Maya, he didn't feel the need to build any walls. "I don't want that either," he said honestly. Her face lit up at his words, and she let out a breath like she had been holding it in. "Would it be okay if I visited sometimes?" she asked. "You can visit any time you want," Ethan answered. From that day on, a new rhythm slowly began to form. Maya started visiting the ranch often. At first, she came just to talk for a few minutes, but soon she stayed longer. They would sit on the porch and drink tea while watching the horses move across the fields. Sometimes they walked around the ranch together, talking about simple things: her work, the mountain trails she wanted to explore someday, Ethan's stories about ranch life. The more they talked, the more they learned about each other. Maya learned that Ethan had grown up on the ranch, working hard from a young age. She learned he didn't talk much about his feelings, but he showed his kindness through actions, fixing things, helping neighbors, caring for animals. She admired the quiet strength in him. Ethan learned that Maya had moved to the town to start a calmer life after years of stress. She was trying to rebuild her confidence, step by step. She wasn't as fragile as she looked that night. She was brave enough to start new. He admired her courage more than she knew. Every time she visited, something grew between them, slow, natural, warm. It wasn't rushed and it wasn't forced. It simply happened, like sunlight slowly filling a room. One afternoon, Maya arrived with a small picnic basket. "I thought we could eat outside today," she said. Ethan nodded, surprised but pleased. They sat under a tree near the ranch, enjoying the quiet. Birds chirped softly, and the breeze moved gently through the grass. It felt peaceful, almost perfect. "Do you ever go back to those mountain trails?" Maya asked suddenly. "Not often," Ethan said, "only for work or when animals wander too far." "Maybe one day," she said hesitantly, "we could go together. In daylight." He looked at her, and she gave a shy smile, almost as if she wasn't sure he would agree. "I'd like that," Ethan replied. Her smile widened, and for a moment, she looked truly happy. Time continued to pass, and Maya's fears from that night slowly faded. But she never forgot the way Ethan held her steady, or how safe she had felt under the mountain moon. And Ethan never forgot the sound of her trembling voice saying, "Don't run from me." Because it wasn't just fear, it was trust. As weeks turned into months, their bond only grew stronger. Maya became a part of Ethan's daily life in ways he hadn't expected. Sometimes she brought books to read while he worked on repairs. Sometimes she helped feed the horses, even though she was a little afraid of them at first. Ethan would stand close by, giving simple instructions, and she would try her best. Slowly, she became more comfortable. One evening, as the sun was setting, they sat on the porch watching the sky turn orange and pink. "Do you ever think about that night?" Maya asked quietly. "Sometimes," Ethan said. "It was scary for you." "It was," she admitted. "But strange as it sounds, it was also the night I met someone who changed my life." Ethan looked at her, surprised by her honesty. "I mean it," Maya continued. "Before that night, I felt lost in many ways. Not just in the forest, but you made me feel seen and safe. You helped me without asking anything in return. That meant more to me than you know." Ethan didn't always know how to express his emotions, but he tried. "I'm glad I was there," he said softly. "I'm glad it was me who found you." Maya lowered her gaze for a moment, then looked up with a gentle smile. "You didn't run from me," she said. "And I'm glad you didn't." Ethan felt his chest tighten, but in a good way. "I'm not planning to run now either," he said. They sat quietly as the colors in the sky faded. There was no need for more words. The silence between them felt warm and full, like something steady and promising. By the time stars appeared, Maya rested her head lightly on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move or speak. He simply let her stay there. It felt right. It felt peaceful. In that moment, both of them understood that what started as a frightening night beneath the mountain moon had grown into something meaningful and lasting. Their lives had crossed in an unexpected way. But now they walked forward together, not because of fear, but because of trust, kindness, and a bond that neither of them wanted to let go. And from that night onward, the memory of her trembling voice and his quiet promise stayed with them both, not as a reminder of fear, but as the beginning of something beautiful.